social media etiquette.
Mm-hmm.
I love that people are showing up for this.
Yes, I do, because everybody needs to know what that is, right? I mean, we learn from each other, right? Whether it's social media, whether it's our business, we learn from each other. So
Yeah.
this is good. This is good that people are coming in and listening and learning, because we get to learn too.
And we are going to learn because we are live on Facebook. So we're talking about social media etiquette. What is social media etiquette? Right? We're going to go over how to deal with clients, friends, and trolls. And I'm not talking about the little dolls with like the cute, like I got little kids, not like the trolls with the hair. I'm talking about like the internet trolls, right? So we're going to go over how to deal with clients, friends, and trolls. I'm Jesse Zagorski, and this is Janki Patel.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess I can let you introduce yourself. And this is
Janki Patel.
That's so much more fun. Let's do that. And if you've been on one of these webinars with us before, this is Emotional Gymnastics for Real Estate Agents, which is a fun name we came up with. We're missing two of our co-hosts today. Jim Godwin is sick, and Priyanka, neither of them last minute could be here. So just me and Janki are going to run. And if you're watching us on Lab Coat Agents, if you have questions, type it in. Jake is going to be nice enough to keep an eye on the questions and let us know if we have questions, things you want to talk about. Oh, Josh is watching this. I love it. Josh says, excited for this. I love it. Glad you're here, Josh. So here's what we're doing. The format of this show, we basically just throw out a topic, and then usually it's four of us. Today it's going to be two of us. Janki and I are going to just chat through it and see. So I guess the first one is in terms of social media etiquette. This is something that probably needs to be addressed before we even dive into the stuff that's written online. Are there certain things that should be talked about, like voice to voice, and just not posted on social media or not just texted? What do you think?
You know, I honestly think that we should all come to where we don't have, we have to think, we should think, we just don't go crazy texting. And that has taken a little bit of challenge within myself. Wouldn't you agree? Like, it takes time to not rush because we're such high Ds. We just want to go and get it done. But there are times when we have to step back and think about what is it that I'm posting, and is it going to help someone, hurt someone, or where will this take it? You know, where will this post go?
Have you ever written something and then deleted it, or written something?
All the time, Jesse. Oh my God, I did that this morning. I'm like, no, this doesn't sound right. Or no, this is too aggressive. I have to have those self-talks all the time, right? I mean, we have to be careful of our audience. Yeah, we have to understand who the audience is, first of all, where you're posting this, right? And what is your message? What is it that you're trying to say out there?
Right. And that's one of those things that we were talking about. And I love this question. We always make a list of questions before the show. And this one was, do you have emotional Twitter fingers? I know that's such a funny thing because it's like, because so much of the stuff you see online, and we're talking about, could be stuff in Lab Coat Agents. It could be stuff that you are putting as a comment on someone else's post. It's not even things you're posting yourself, right? But because everything is public, and there's a really good movie. Have you ever seen the movie called The Social Network?
Yes.
Okay, about how Facebook was started and like Mark Zuckerberg. Like, it's such a good movie. And I don't know if even talking about this on Facebook is going to get this thing like deleted. I'm sure he was not a fan of that movie. Mark did not look very flattering in that movie. But there's a line in that movie where someone says to him and says, "The internet is written in pen. It's not in pen. It's permanent." And so once you put something out there on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, right? It's, yes, you can delete it, but people see it. So how do you take a pause? Oh, we have Priyanka here. What's up, Priyanka?
Hi, Priyanka.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Sorry, I'm at my assisted living. We had some emergency happen today.
Oh.
So I'm doing remote. So I won't be in my office where you usually do it. And I have to keep my mask on. Sorry.
No problem.
We can hear you fine. So this is a sign of the times of COVID that you have, you just do a webinar. Like it is what it is, right? We can hear you fine.
And you're here. Thank you. Yeah, definitely.
Glad you're here.
So who are we roasting today?
No, we're talking about emotional Twitter. We're talking about emotional Twitter fingers. So where I was going was, I want to know, now I got two of you guys to ask the question. When you are frustrated or triggered and you're going like I got to comment on this, what do you guys do? Do you write it and then think about it before you click send? Do you pause? How do you catch yourself? What's the process for you guys?
I've learned.
I'm still evolving. A lot of times I will do it and then I regret it. But there are more times now where I stop myself before sending. I still type it, kind of like, it's like instant reaction. And then somehow my subconscious mind is saying like, hey, hold on. And then I stop. And I have learned when I reread it 10 minutes later, I just say, oh, thank God I didn't send it.
And that probably works with text messages to clients. That probably works with Facebook posts, anything, right? So how long do you typically have to wait before when you go back and reread it to get that cooling off period, do you think?
For me, it's 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, you know. So.
You know,
go ahead, Jongi.
I usually, Jesse, what I do is I send the text, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't read the text properly, so I got to resend another one. Apologies, you know. But yes, but lately what I've been doing is saying, wait a minute, read the text again, and then really, do you want to say this, you know? So I've learned to kind of take a minute or two before I hit the send button.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like for people watching, the biggest action item here is just when you're going to post, you can write it out. And there actually is something therapeutic in the process of typing it out. Yes. It's just pausing before you actually click send. Yes. I think about that all the time when I'm reading through threads. And we'll get to a specific thread in Lab Code Agents later that Jongi had some experience with. But it's interesting because I read through these comments, like we're all a couple of us are moderators. Are you a moderator also, Priyanka, in Lab Code Agents?
Say it again?
Are you a moderator on Lab Code Agents also?
No,
okay,
no,
so Jongi and I are moderators there, and Priyanka's, I know you're online a lot though, but like you read through these threads and you're thinking like, did people feel good about this later? Were they proud of like, and you'll see 400 comments. You're like, was it piling on? Did everybody? Anyway, we'll get back to that. But I've got a better question, which is when you misread cues, right? Like the meaning of the message. I want to make sure we cover this before going into the crazy things people post. But when they misread cues, what are things you can do in terms of like, if you can actually pause and you can get yourself to have some perspective, how do you change what you've written? Because sometimes you don't have the ability to do a voice-to-voice conversation. It's just going to be a written form. How do you communicate those cues that can get lost otherwise?
I think you have to explain yourself a little bit better. So a lot of times I have posted something that is like 3, 4, 5 lines, and in my mind, it's very clear. And people start commenting and say, oh, no, this is not what I meant. So either I will put like update or like, hey guys, or I start answering to those people because people still read the comments. They're not reading just your post. They're also reading the comments and then responding to those also. I think it depends on the situation. But I have learned like a lot of times people are, and we do the same thing. I do the same thing. I read somebody's post and then I think what I think, right? Mm-hmm. I interpreted it one way and then that person says like, no, this is not what I meant. And it happens because we have evolved as human beings, listening to each other, the nuances, right? So
yeah, we're meaning making machines, right? That's what our brains are.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So all that communication, those nuances are lost when you're just writing, and then when you're reading that written words, that's what I love about books. I post so much about like how my life is what it is because of all the books that I have read as a kid. That was my escape. But the best thing about reading books is everybody interpreted differently. That's why when you go to a movie, it's not the same as you have imagined, right? So you're reading the written words and then you have this movie going on in your brain. You are picturing all that's happening on the pages. Then you go to a movie and it's like, no, this is not it. The movie is never as good as the book that you have read because your interpretation is your word.
But that's what's so cool about social media. So go ahead, because I think this is where you're going with it, right? Like,
right, exactly. It's like social media is the same thing. You're writing stuff, these are written words, and everybody's picture is different for the same written words than yours. Right. And that's where the issue is coming up because this is not just somebody reading a book. There's a back and forth communication going on with the written words where everybody has a different picture of the same 5 lines that somebody has written, right?
But here's the part cool about Jongi, and then you can go for this. This is what I love what you said because I never even considered this. You actually get real-time feedback with social media if people are misinterpreting you. And you can go back and edit it because that's something I don't ever do it. Like I put something on the internet, like I post at like 5 a.m. in the morning and then I go away and I never come back to it again. I don't use social media in real time like most people do. And so, but if you actually, you know something might be questionable, or you just take a look at it later and see if it's being misinterpreted, you can go back and edit and adjust and reflect it. Is that where you're going, Chunky, or where are you going with this?
I was going with that. And you can, if you're in real time, you can do that. But I want to say something also that, when you post something, you don't always, you have to consider your audience. Sometimes you have to understand who is your audience, what is going to be, could this blow up, or could it just let me go under the radar, So that's something that I have learned. And sometimes, you don't try to boast, or you don't try to put something out there that it's about you, but you want, it's like Priyanka said, sometimes everyone interprets the posts differently, right? I interpret it differently than what Priyanka would, than what you would. And sometimes, someone might think that, oh, look at her, she's bragging, or look at her, she's trying to sell, or she's just coming from contribution, right? So there are 3 different ways of looking at it, 10 different ways of looking at it. I think it's all a matter of understanding what the person who's writing the post is trying to relay out there.
Yeah. And this is probably a good tie-in then to the real question that we wanted to talk about today, which is, why do people say things online that they probably wouldn't say in real life, right? And especially inside Facebook groups like the Lab Coat Agents community, which is the largest community of real estate agents, the largest free community of real estate agents in the US, probably in the world, right? And it's an amazing community. And it's interesting to see some of these threads that go crazy in there. And are you still comfortable talking about, Janki, the experience that you had a few weeks ago?
Yeah, sure.
All right. And so we talked about this offline, and we were unsure, like...
I meditated before this.
You meditated. Okay, good. All right. So tell us. So for people that didn't see the thread or don't remember, because it caused some controversy, right? Let's in the moderators group, we talked about it a lot. I mean, tell us. So what happened? Tell us the story.
So basically, I think with Walopa, the lead generation system that I have also it's basically sending out emails or text messages to a network that you have. Anyone that is in your phone, anyone that is in LinkedIn, anyone that is in your Facebook, it sends out messages to them, right? Because they're trying to create maybe referral business or whatever it might be. I don't know. And so basically an email or a text message went out to quite a few realtors, because half my community, more than half my Facebook community is realtors, right? And it went out to them, and it kept on going out at least maybe 2 or 3 times that week. And even though I was getting messages back from agents, we started deleting it. I had no idea that this automated system is happening until I found out from realtors telling me, hey, I'm a realtor myself. I'm not looking to buy a home. And I'm like, oh my God, what the heck is going on? As soon as I got these messages coming back to me, my assistant and we just started deleting, and I'm like, I obviously called my account manager saying, please get rid of this. And so in the back end, I'm getting all this done. And all of a sudden, 11 o'clock at night, and imagine, I put my entire day on hold, canceled certain appointments, sent out my other buyer's agents to other appointments. And I took that day to just focus on getting this done. Because for me, I don't want people, realtors out there to think anything that I'm trying to pursue them or anything of that sort, because that's not what I'm trying to do here.
You just didn't want to bug realtors. That was not your goal. Yeah,
exactly.
And by the way, so just as you're telling the story, I'm sure most people watching this have had some sort of mishap with an automated system. If you use any sort of automation, at some point in time, something's going to go wrong. It happens. So you ended up having an automated text go out to some realtors that you didn't know were on the list, and it was bothering some of them, correct?
I guess it did. And,
okay. And the message was just talking about, like, hey, do you want to buy a house in XYZ area? Like, it was a pretty normal message. All right.
Yes.
So that's the background. So what happened that night?
I guess at 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm like, oh, let me just, right before I go to bed, let me just look and see what the heck is going on with Lab Coat Agents. I've not been on there all day. All of a sudden, I looked at this post. My information is there. I'm like, oh my God, what is this person trying to say? And basically, she was very blunt about this message. This woman just doesn't get it. This realtor just doesn't get it. How dumb is she, or something of that sort. And by the way, somebody in the comments said, oh, and by the way, she's a moderator for this group as well.
So pause right there. So just, I want to make sure people watching understand what's going on. So someone took a screenshot of the message that your automated system had sent out. posted that screenshot into Lab Coat Agents, and said, how dumb is this person, right? It's basically what they communicated.
Something of that sort.
They basically took made it very public and said, I'm so annoyed this person sent me a text message, and how dumb is this realtor? Okay. So what happened when you saw that? What was your reaction?
My reaction was like, I was frozen in time, so to speak. And it kind of offended me to a level where it didn't make me angry, but I was more hurt that another realtor can actually say something to another realtor. The pain was there, there was a little bit of a pain point right there, that how come she didn't communicate this with me directly instead of just going all out there and posting. And then a lot of realtors says, oh, I got the message too, and I got the message too, and oh my God. And just reading those comments, I just shut it down. And obviously I went to my moderators group and started talking to you guys,
there was a couple hundred comments, wasn't there?
Yes.
Pretty quickly, and some of them were not very nice. And the point of the story, by the way, is not to put anyone on blast. The person who made the post and the person who, all the people who commented on it, who are piling on whatever it was, I'm not faulting anybody. Mm-hmm. The reason we wanted to talk about this was, one, just in terms of thinking through, if you are going to post, think through before you post. But two, I'm really more wanted to focus on Janki's reaction, right? So you went to you're pissed, right?
So earlier I said I was hurt more than pissed, but really to think about it, now that I'm going back into that moment, I take myself back into that moment, I was angry too. You're right. I was pissed. And I was like, how dare she does this? She has no clue who the heck I am, and let alone kind of judging me. And that also on a platform that is the most popular platform for realtors. Like I was really angry, but then at the same time, I was hurt, and I went right away to the moderators, the admins, and said, what can I do? And at 11 o'clock at night, I got a good response. So grateful for moderators such as you as well, that responded and said, okay, step back, Janki, take it easy, and we did what we had to do in the back.
But I don't know if anybody even said take it easy. This is Priyanka, if you want to jump in here, because that's the thing that's interesting was, I'm not taking away from your reaction at all. And it's interesting you comment on hurt and sad, because hurt and angry. The angry is usually an outward manifestation of the hurt. Hurt is really the underlying feeling, but it comes out as anger, right? Because it's easier to be angry than it is to feel the hurt. Yes. And so, some people said take it easy. And some people were like, yeah, screw them. And some people were really angry too. It's almost fueling the fire. What's your take as you listen to all this?
Okay, I'm going to say something. It was very, very personal for Janki, right? Those 100 to 100. How many people do we have in Lab Coat Agent? 100,000, over 100,000, right?
Yeah.
So
130,000, I think.
Say that again?
130,000, I believe.
130,000. And then 200 people made comment on that. What percentage of 130,000 people make that 200 people, right? It's a minuscule amount. Now you look back at, are those 200 people ever going to refer your business, connect with you? Out of 130,000, there are very few people that are going to be your friends, they're going to refer your business, all that. So I'm talking about from practical point of view. But once we take that practical side out of it, you're a human being who has been blasted off on social media about your professionalism, about how you run business, about your integrity. Because I think somebody making a comment about you being a moderator, I think they were kind of pointing out, maybe you got all their information from Lab Coat Agent and you're misusing it, right? And that's where her came from, because you're not that kind of a person. You did not get it from Lab Coat Agent. You did not send those emails trying to blast. You're not stupid. It's some system who kind of messed up. We all have realtors in our database, right? And then if they get it, I assume they are my friends, and they're going to say hey, Priyanka, this is going on.
Exactly. You assume that they're your friends, right? But when they blast you and have comments as such,
right?
But here's the thing. Even hearing you talk about it now, because like as the weeks pass, the emotion comes down. I know it does. And as we were talking about this last week, getting ready for this show, we were all like, this is still a little like emotionally raw. Like I can even hear today, you feel better. You sound better today than you did last week. You sound more calm. Like you sound like you've processed it, because it's a really natural human emotion to be triggered by this. Like if you have, even though you, like Priyanka, as you listen, like, oh, that makes me feel better. Like, it's only 200 people out of 140,000. But like in the moment you're reading 200 people saying things about you, like we're just wired to be like,
right. Like
that doesn't feel good. And so
that's why I want you to differentiate. Like people listening to us may think like, oh, out of 130,000, only 200 people commented. So what's a big deal? Right. And that's why I want to bring out, she's a human being. It's not a machine who's sitting there reading those comments and let it go and doing the calculation. Oh, it's like, 0.5% people. So it doesn't matter. For you, that was very real. And then the point is like everybody else reading it, right?
Right.
So it's just like, they are blasting me over here. They're saying things about me that are not true.
Yeah.
And all the other people are going to read it. And what are they going to think about me now?
Yeah.
Right.
There's so much more goes on in human beings that people can't see.
Right.
Right. And then Jesse, when you were saying like, why do people do it? That they will never say it to your face, but they do it on social media.
Right.
Because that communication, when you're face to face, you always worry about other person's feelings. You worry about, you offend them or will you hurt them? But when you are being a keyboard warrior kind of thing, you're not talking to somebody. There's no other human being there. There's a name and you're just going with it. Right? And you do it to your friends also, not just your people you don't know.
Right.
Because,
And we always know that seek before you, there's a saying, seek, something like that. I don't know.
Think before you speak.
Think before you speak, right? I mean, same thing. Think before you post. I mean, I just felt it. And again, like I said, I meditated before I came on to this.
Okay, so let's pause though, because watch, Junkie, because I want to leave people with a couple actionable takeaways out of this.
Absolutely.
Right? Because everyone could be on the receiving end of this. Any single person watching this could be on the receiving end without even knowing it. Right? You could end up in this situation. And some of you could be on the end where you're putting this out there without really thinking through what you're doing. So as a community, one is think before you type. Either side of it you're on. But two, from what Priyanka said, I love the reframe of putting it into perspective. If you want an actionable takeaway, is there a way you can shift it? As you're getting triggered, if you can think, well, okay, it is 200 people. That feels terrible. It's 200 people out of 140,000, right? You can help start reframing that perspective. Not that it takes away the hurt, just gives you another thing to focus on. Right. And for you, Junkie, you meditated. Every week we come back to that. Yeah. You meditated, which allows you to, because you sound more grounded today than you sounded a week ago, because you knew we were going to talk about this and you prepared.
Right? That moment, and when we were preparing for this episode, that moment right there was just like bringing the raw out of me, right? And that was the real me. This is also, of course, real me, but I'm more, like Priyanka said, does it really matter? And at the end of the day, I'm a human, right? All of us are humans. We all have a heart. No matter who you think you are, at the end of the day, you do have feelings, right?
But check this out. You just made me think of something. So have you guys ever taken a DISC test?
Yes.
Okay. You know how they give you two different scores? There's the score for what you are naturally and the score of what you are under stress, right? There's the side of you that you show to the world and the side of what you really are. And so they're both you. It's not like one's not you and you're being fake. It's just, it's under different circumstances. So like today, because we know we're doing a broadcast, you're presenting to the world because you're meditating and you're grounded. And it's not that the other feelings aren't valid. They're the other side of you. Everyone's got that other side of like that quick anger and that deep hurt. That's human. That's raw emotion. And I think it's interesting that you can go between the two using meditation as a tool and things like that. So.
And that's what we're
also process those emotions since our last week. Last week, we were very blunt with her, right? I don't know if the blunt was a word, but we were very open with each other, all of us. Her to us and we to her.
And Priyanka was like, can you handle it?
I'm very direct. So I just hit you right there. I just like, hey, so this is what we...
And that's when the challenge came on to me, like, of course, because I'm a high D too. So like, bring it on, let's go. And that's why we're here today, is when we brought it up, I'm like, all right, I'm up for it. Let's talk about it. Because it's not about me. It's about all of us out there, people who are listening to us as well. It's about what is the message that we're trying to deliver to them. Like, think before you tweet, sort of thing, or think before you comment on a post. Before you post, think about that. Think,
So I think, remember, we talked about two things. One is what you're talking about for people who are writing it. But we also want to talk about the emotional intelligence, how to react to those posts, right? So that's the part we wanted to discuss and elaborate on. Like, okay, so if something like that happens to you, how do you handle? Like, you have a knee-jerk reaction, you're going to get hurt, you're going to get angry, you're going to start responding, or is there a better way to handle that? And that's what we wanted to discuss openly, so Jesse?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, this is where I'm coming up on the end of my time limit for today. So I can leave you guys here chatting. We can continue this for next week, whatever you want to do. But like, you're right in terms of how do you respond is my biggest takeaway so far from today is in how do you respond is the pause.
Right.
That as simple as it sounds, like that is the one thing where I look at myself in my own life and where I screw it up because I send things I regret. Mm-hmm. I do. Rarely do I post things because I think I have more awareness that like I don't know if I've ever had a bad post experience, but I think I know pause more before I post. But I'll text people things or I'll instant message things if I'm frustrated that I look back and I'm like, there's probably a better way I could have said that. I think it's the pause or type it out and then come back and wait 5 minutes before sending, 10 minutes. That to me is my biggest takeaway from this.
I totally agree with you. Pause. I did defend myself immediately. In certain ways, what I do is I pause, I take away from that and say, okay, this is a good response to respond. And then I go away and I put it away and I just, do my thing, what I have to do. But at that moment, I don't showcase it. In that case, right. In that particular situation, I did because it could have been that it was end of the day and I was so exhausted mentally, Yeah,
but it's hard, and this is where we're guys. Priyanka, if you got a lot more you want to say, like we'll let this thing roll, and I'll let you guys just keep rolling with this thing because it's hard with social media because it's unrolling in real time with a lot of human beings. It's not just like with a single text message. We're like, okay, you want to respond to a client, you want to say something, you can pause because it's a one-on-one dialogue. Social media involves you and the hundreds or thousands of other people reading it, and you're watching these comments spiraling out in real time. And so it's like, if you pause, are you making it better or worse? It almost adds a sense of time sensitivity to it that doesn't exist in one-on-one relationships.
All right, I totally agree with that as well. So I think what we should do, Priyanka, I mean, let's talk about this next week a little bit when Jim is around as well, and then start on a new topic or the next time we're together. How about that?
You want to do that, guys?
We have hashed it out enough where we have given people there's nothing else to do but pause. Exactly. You cannot control somebody else's reactions, right? Yeah. You can only control yours, but we also want people to think, especially people who are listening to us, like what you do or what you say on social media can affect somebody adversely. You may be doing it in a spur of a moment for 30 seconds, like, oh, look at this. And you moved on, but the impact you have left on that human being.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. That matters.
All right. So here's how we'll end it for today. Because by the way, Kathy said this is such good stuff.
Thank you, Kathy.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks with part 2 of this. Right. Because we're just going to do this as a 30-minute webinar today. We'll come back in 2 weeks. But unless Priyanka, you want to keep rolling, you're good to cut it here. We'll do another part in 2 weeks.
I think we are done. Like,
all right, so let me tell this story.
I don't have anything more to say.
You ready? Can I tell this story? This is a really good visual. And a therapist actually told me this story years ago, and it's always stuck with me. So if you picture a fence post, like a wooden fence, and you're hammering nails into it, when you say things in anger, and this was talking more about like a verbal communication, but in this case, we're talking about typing things online that might be taken in a negative way. Same difference, right? When you hammer nails into a wood post, you're making a little hole. You can pop that nail out, right? You can take back what you said, but there's still a hole left in the wood. There's still the indentation from where that nail really was. And so there's almost nothing you can do to mend that before you think before you speak. If you picture that image, it helps me at least slow down and think, you know what? I can pop the nail out. I know I can try to make it better, but it still leaves a hole from where it was, and it was never quite the same, that relationship.
I totally agree with you. And I'm on board with that one as well. Think before you type, think before you speak. That's my...
If it's something negative about somebody else,
Yeah. Just know we love you guys, right?
Yes.
Everybody, enjoy your weekend. Be kind. Janki, Priyanka, thank you guys for being here.
It's so hard for me,
It's a fun one. All right, guys.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.